Let's be honest. There's a moment every man faces, usually in silence, where he realizes something uncomfortable. The woman he wants has options. She's admired, desired, pursued. She's the type whose phone lights up even when she's not touching it. And in that moment, a man either panics or he learns a truth most men never do. A truth that can shift the entire balance of attraction without force, without manipulation, without pretending to be someone he's not. And that truth is what I'm about to reveal to you. But before we get there, I want you to feel the weight of something. A woman doesn't choose the man who chases the hardest. She chooses the man her mind can't ignore. Think about that for a second. Every guy competing for her attention thinks effort alone is the currency. They think being available, being agreeable, being endlessly present is the strategy. But presence alone doesn't create desire. Presence alone doesn't create emotional gravity. The men who fall into that trap end up becoming one thing women forget the quickest: predictable. And predictability for a woman is comfort. But comfort is not attraction. Attraction is curiosity, tension, respect, admiration. It's the rare combination of emotional safety and psychological mystery that makes her brain light up when she hears your name. Most men never create that combination because they're too focused on being chosen. Instead of becoming the man who gets chosen naturally, they react to her instead of making her respond to them. They adjust their tone, their plans, their boundaries just to keep her around. And the moment you soften yourself to secure someone is the moment they start seeing you as someone they don't have to value. When a woman realizes you're afraid of losing her, she stops feeling the urge to keep you. But here's the twist. Women don't choose based on who tries the hardest. They choose based on who makes them feel the most emotionally alive. And that feeling doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the man who can be calm in chaos. The man who doesn't get intimidated by her beauty, her attention, or her silence. The man who doesn't crumble when he senses competition. Because women don't want a man who fights other men. They want a man who stands so firmly in who he is that other men naturally fall behind him. The woman who has many choices is not waiting for the man who shouts the loudest. She's waiting for the man whose presence changes the temperature in the room. The man who speaks to her in a way that reaches her mind, not just her ears. The man who understands that attraction is not a chase, it's a pull. And the reason most men never experience this pull is because they don't know the deeper psychological switches inside a woman. Switches that, once activated, make her lock onto you, even if she swore she was keeping her options open. And once you understand what those switches are, you stop competing and she starts choosing. A woman with options isn't impressed by surface-level charm. She's heard compliments before. She's been pursued before. She's had men try to impress her with money, muscles, or confidence they don't actually possess. But what she rarely encounters, what stops her mind in its tracks, is a man who understands the psychology behind why women choose one man over another. A man who knows that her decision isn't based on looks, status, or even chemistry alone. It's based on how she feels about herself when she's around him. You see, the biggest mistake men make is trying to show a woman why he is valuable. But the man she chooses is the one who makes her feel valuable in his presence. Not with flattery, not with desperation, and not with over-the-top attention. Instead, he communicates a subtle message. I see your depth, not just your beauty. This instantly separates him from every other man who sees her as something to win instead of someone to understand. A woman will compare the way she feels with you to the way she feels with every other man, and the man she chooses is the one who gives her a feeling she can't find anywhere else. Sometimes it's a sense of emotional safety. Sometimes it's the feeling of being understood. Sometimes it's inspiration, curiosity, challenge, or peace. But whatever it is, it becomes hers. And because it's hers, she returns to the man who activates it. This is why emotional presence is more powerful than physical presence. Any man can text her. Any man can call her. Any man can offer attention. But very few men know how to listen with strength. Very few men can sit with her emotions without trying to fix them. Very few men can look at her without being intimidated by what she represents. Women don't choose based on what you say. They choose based on what they sense behind what you say. And here's the truth most men never hear. A woman doesn't choose the man who gives her the world. She chooses the man who makes her want to give herself to him. That happens when she senses that you're not trying to take anything from her. Not validation, not permission, not emotional reassurance. You're not trying to use her to complete yourself. Instead, you're offering a world she naturally wants to be part of. This is why the most attractive men aren't the loudest. They aren't the ones showing off. They are the ones whose energy says, I'm good with or without you, but I'd like to see where this goes. That mixture of confidence and openness creates something incredibly rare. Earned magnetism. It's not forced, it's not begged for, and it's not performed. It's simply who they are. And that's when a woman starts looking at other men differently. Suddenly, their effort feels excessive, their attention feels heavy, their presence feels replaceable. But you become the one she pays attention to, even in silence. You become the one she thinks about in moments she doesn't expect. You become the option that slowly turns into the choice. Most men lose the woman they want long before she ever walks away. Not because they're unworthy, not because she never liked them, but because they accidentally reveal something she can't unsee. That deep down, they're afraid of losing her. And the moment a woman senses that fear, the power dynamic shifts, not in a manipulative way, but in a natural psychological way. Because a woman can't fully choose a man, she feels responsible for holding together. She can desire him, she can admire him, she can feel drawn to him, but she can't choose him if his emotional center collapses under pressure. What women pay attention to isn't whether you care. It's whether you can stay grounded when you care. That's the difference between attachment and attraction. Attachment says, I need you to choose me or I fall apart. Attraction says, I'm choosing you because I want you, not because I'm afraid of any other outcome. Women feel that difference instantly. One energy creates emotional weight, the other creates desire. A woman will always gravitate toward the man whose emotions don't spill everywhere the moment something feels uncertain. Not because she wants you to be cold, but because a grounded man makes her feel safe. A steady man makes her feel feminine. A man who knows how to hold himself makes her want to step closer, not farther. Emotional stability is not about hiding your feelings. It's about mastering them. It's about showing her that you can feel deeply without losing yourself. And here's the part most men never learn. The more emotionally balanced you are, the more emotionally open she becomes. Women match the energy of the man they trust. When she feels your calm, she lets down her defenses. When she senses your security, she reveals her insecurities. When she sees your consistency, she gives you intimacy. This is why some men get sides of a woman that no one else ever sees. It's not luck, it's emotional leadership. Emotional leadership is not dominance, it's direction. It's the ability to meet her emotions without absorbing them, to let her express herself without you reacting out of fear, jealousy, or ego, to listen without becoming small, to stay present without folding. When a woman finds a man like that, every other option around her becomes noise. Because the truth is, women don't choose the man who makes them feel butterflies. Butterflies fade. They choose the man who makes them feel safe enough to be their full, unfiltered self. And that's when something powerful happens. She stops comparing you to other men because the comparison becomes pointless. She stops questioning whether you fit into her life because you naturally elevate it. She stops treating you as an option and begins seeing you as the man who brings order to emotional chaos, the man who doesn't silence her feelings but steadies them. That's when she chooses you. Not because you tried harder, but because you stood stronger. A woman only chooses a man over her other options when she feels something she can't logically explain, something that bypasses her reasoning and hits her deeper instincts. And one of the strongest instincts a woman has is this: she will always choose the man whose life is bigger than his desire for her. Not because she wants to be ignored, and not because she wants to compete with your purpose, but because a man with purpose creates emotional gravity. His life pulls her in. His direction gives her direction. His standards lift her standards. The men who lose her are the ones who make her their center. The men who win her are the ones who invite her into a world she actually wants to be part of. That's the quiet secret. A man who is passionately building something, his body, his career, his discipline, his peace, his world, naturally becomes more attractive than the man who does nothing except focus on her. A woman doesn't choose the man who revolves around her. She chooses the man worth revolving with. When a man has purpose, he carries a different energy. His time feels valuable, His presence feels intentional. His words carry weight. He doesn't rush her decisions or beg for her attention because he isn't afraid of stillness. He doesn't fear losing her because his life doesn't collapse if someone leaves. And that's what makes her want to stay. Not because she feels obligated, but because she feels inspired. Women are deeply intuitive, especially about men's direction. They can feel when a man is drifting versus when he's grounded. They can sense when a man is moving towards something meaningful versus running in circles. And here's the truth most men never understand. A woman won't choose a man who isn't choosing himself. If you neglect your dreams, your body, your boundaries, your peace, she will quietly lose trust. She won't always say it out loud, but her heart knows when a man is living beneath his potential. But when she witnesses a man who honors his potential, everything changes. She looks at him with a different kind of respect. She listens differently, she engages differently. His ambition doesn't intimidate her, it awakens her. His discipline doesn't push her away, it pulls her closer. His standards don't threaten her. They challenge her in the best possible way. And here's where the psychology becomes powerful. When a woman sees a man moving forward with or without her, she naturally invests more. Not out of fear, not out of insecurity, but because she recognizes value. She recognizes direction. She recognizes masculine energy that isn't performative, but lived. Purpose creates polarity. Polarity creates attraction. Attraction creates choice. And that choice becomes easy for her when she realizes that out of all the men she could select, only one of them is actually going somewhere. Only one gives her a future she can imagine. Only one makes her want to rise rather than settle. That's the man she chooses, not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one whose life is already moving and invites her to move with him. A woman doesn't choose a man simply because he wants her. She chooses him when she feels something in his presence that she can't duplicate anywhere else. And one of the deepest triggers behind that feeling is this: how a man handles boundaries. Most men think boundaries push women away, but the truth is the opposite. Boundaries are what make a woman realize, often quietly and surprisingly, that you are different from the rest. Because most men collapse when they like someone. They soften their principles. They loosen their standards. They say yes when they mean no. And they let their fear of losing her control their behavior. But a man who holds his line, a man who respects himself even when he wants her, that's the man she chooses. A woman will always test, not because she's manipulative, but because testing is how she measures emotional strength. It's how she determines which man can handle her energy, her intensity, her moods, her depth. When she pushes slightly and you stay centered, she feels safe. When she sees you make decisions from clarity instead of desperation, she feels drawn in. When she realizes that your interest doesn't make you blind, she feels respect. And respect is the birthplace of attraction. Women don't want a man who controls them. They want a man who controls himself. A man who can say, I like you, but I don't abandon my life, my time, or my values to keep you. That is unbelievably rare. And the rarer something is, the more power it holds. Here's a truth most men are never taught. A woman can only choose a man she can trust. And trust doesn't come from being nice, being available, or being endlessly patient. Trust comes from consistency, from alignment between your words and actions, from showing her that your emotional center is real, that you're not pretending to be strong, you are strong. And part of that strength is your ability to walk away from disrespect, confusion, mixed signals, or lukewarm effort. Not dramatically, not angrily, but calmly. Because a woman cannot fully choose a man who refuses to choose himself. She cannot attach to a man who needs her more than he needs his own integrity. Boundaries create clarity. Clarity creates attraction. Attraction creates commitment. And commitment becomes easy when she realizes that you're not demanding anything from her. You're simply living by a standard she wants to rise to. A woman might entertain many men. She might talk to others. She might explore her options. But the man who holds his boundaries becomes the one she returns to. Not because he pressured her, not because he competed for her, but because in a world full of men who bend, he was the one who stood firm. And in that firmness, she feels something powerful: security. The kind that makes her want to invest. The kind that makes her want to close off other options. the kind that makes her realize losing a man like you would cost her far more than losing any man who can't stand on his own feet. That's the moment she chooses you, not out of fear, but out of recognition. A woman doesn't truly choose a man because he's perfect. She chooses him because being with him feels like alignment, emotional, psychological, and instinctive. When a woman has options, she evaluates far more than attraction. She watches how a man carries himself in silence, how he handles uncertainty, how he responds when things don't go his way. She's not just choosing a partner, she's choosing a future. And the man who becomes her future is the one who gives her a feeling she can't manufacture with anyone else. A woman chooses the man who brings her peace without being boring, strength without being controlling, mystery without being distant, and love without being needy. He's the man whose presence makes her want to be better, not because he asks her to, but because she sees what he asks of himself. He's the man who inspires her without performing, who listens without weakness, who leads without ego. When she meets a man like that, everything inside her shifts. Suddenly, the other men she thought about, men who were louder, flashier, more aggressive, start to look small. Not because they're bad men, but because they don't affect her at the level he does. This kind of man doesn't chase her. He doesn't beg for her time. He doesn't pressure her into choosing him. Instead, he becomes the one she naturally gravitates toward, because while other men try to impress her, he impresses himself. While other men try to win her approval, he wins his own respect. While other men try to take her attention, he earns her admiration. And admiration is the strongest emotional force behind a woman's long-term decision. Women don't stay with the man they pity. They stay with the man they admire. They stay with the man whose standards sharpen theirs. They stay with the man who makes them feel safe emotionally and excited romantically. They stay with the man who creates an environment where vulnerability feels natural, not risky, where honesty feels welcomed, not judged, where intimacy becomes deeper, not harder. And most importantly, a woman chooses the man who does not fear her freedom or her options. He knows that if she is meant to choose him, she will, not because he limited her choices, but because she compared him to them, and the choice became obvious. That's confidence. Not arrogance, not detachment. Confidence rooted in self-respect, purpose, emotional balance, and consistency. When a woman feels all of that in one man, she chooses him even if she swore she wasn't ready. She chooses him even if her walls were high. She chooses him even if she had other men lined up, because her heart knows the difference between temporary excitement and long-lasting value. And here's where you come in. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be the richest, the tallest, the strongest, or the most experienced. You only need to become the man whose presence speaks louder than other men's efforts. A man who chooses himself so fully that a woman sees her future when she looks at him. Now let me ask you something personal. What is the one trait you know you need to strengthen to become the man a woman truly chooses? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it.